Good evening, everyone. I am Dia de Wet, the President of the South African Institute of Valuers. I would like to extend a very warm welcome to all in attendance tonight. The subject of our masterclass, Real Estate Market Analysis, is of vital importance to all built environment professionals, as well as property practitioners, property developers, and financiers, amongst others. We are very fortunate to have with us tonight Professor Samuel Azasu and Wits Enterprise. Before I introduce Prof. Azasu, I would just like to thank our General Manager, Lerato Pui, and her office staff who have so ably advertised this event, registered all the attendees, and obtained the CETs from our statutory body, SAC PVP. They put so much effort into every event, whether it be a physical workshop, seminar, or webinar. Without them, we would not be the dynamic organization that we are. Thank you, ladies. Now on to business. Prof. Azasu is an educational developer and a counsellor of real estate with over 20 years higher education experience in Sweden, the UAE, South Africa, and Spain. He also has over 15 years experience managing curriculum redesign and quality control for regular degrees and executive courses in real estate. He has also done part-time work in planning and delivering training courses on teaching and curriculum design for university faculty in the engineering and the built environment. Prof. Azasu's curriculum development experience included expanding the existing MSc program by a seminar in response to Swedish government regulations in 2006. At Wits University from 2012, he redesigned and relaunched the BSc postgraduate diploma and MSc programs, the first non-US partner program accepted by the Institute of Real Estate Management, USA, in partial fulfillment of the requirements for the Certified Property Manager designation, resulting in the largest increase in CPMs and the first African chapter of IREM. He also built an executive education program, generating revenues that became the second highest source of revenue for the School of Construction at Wits. Prof. Azasu consults for the likes of the South African Facilities Management Association, the City of Johannesburg Property Company, and private property developers. His work includes salary surveys, papers on land strategy development, urban regeneration, urban retrofitting, and smart cities, as well as market analyses for mainstream property developments and student housing. He has guest lectured for the Uni of Aberdeen Business School, Virginia Tech, Malmö Hochschule, and the School of Engineering, University of Navarra. His research covers real estate education, reward management for the real estate and facilities management sector, and corporate real estate management. He is published in the Journal of European Real Estate Research. There are many, many journals that he has published in. I'm not going to go through all of them. Suffice to say that he is widely read. In addition, Prof. Azasu has edited 2 issues of the Journal of African Real Estate Research and currently serves as an editorial board member for the Journal of Sustainable Real Estate and a board member of the African Real Estate Societies. He also serves on the Conference Review Committee of the CDIO Network on Engineering Education. Prof. Azasu has previously served as a board member for the European Real Estate Society until 2011. He's worked in collaboration with Wits Enterprise which I think that relationship kicked off during COVID quite dramatically because of the restrictions on face-to-face activities. So Wits Commercial Enterprise is a wholly owned subsidiary of the University of Witwatersrand in Johannesburg. They provide strategic consulting services and short courses to bring about societal change across all economic sectors of the African continent, and have partnered with our institute for administration services to deliver this market analysis course that we will be looking at today. They will look forward to hosting you all. So without further ado, please can I introduce you to Professor Sam Azasu. Hi, Prof.
Here we are. All right, let's see if my video is working. Yes, it is working. All right, so hello everyone. Hello from Madrid. As you can see, it's a beautiful day outside. It's almost evening here. Thank you for making time to come and listen to this and, you know, to discuss some of the things that I love talking about the most, which is property market research. Now, let me go into my browser and turn off some offending noises in the background so we can have an uninterrupted time discussing what we want to discuss tonight. So let me just set up. All right. Give me a second. All right, so this is going to go. And then I will share my screen. All right, so now I can do the slideshow. All right. So I hope everybody can see my slides and hear me well. So we will have a basic discussion of what market analysis is about, the central questions and answers, the benefits of doing market research, the users and how they use market analysis, some points to ponder when you either do it yourself or when you buy it, and what should be the components of a good report and what information should each component provide. And I will end with a working definition of market analysis, after which I will introduce the online course that we want to run with SAIV. So I need to thank Diane, the president. I need to thank the immediate past president, Malusi Ntuli, and also Lerato, the office manager, for all the fruitful discussions we had over the last several months until this point. I look forward to continue to help what I consider a very dynamic organization that is relentlessly committed to empowering its membership through high quality educational programs, because I see all the social media posts and I'm always fascinated by the range of speakers and the quality of programs you roll out. So thank you for allowing me to participate in this formation process from a distance. I have only, good memories of my experience in Johannesburg as an educator, and I'm very happy to see the trajectory of my students from the time I arrived until now. And so this is essentially the agenda. So let's get into it quickly. First of all, market research for real estate answers two questions. The first question that it answers is, how do property markets actually function? And the second question is, what tools and processes and methods allow us to identify opportunities in property markets, whether we want to develop a new project whether it's an investment product we want to buy, or if we want to do market research to support assumptions for evaluation assignment. Now, it is very important for me to point out at this stage that these two questions are very interconnected in the sense that question 2 can never be successfully answered unless question 1 is answered well. And I'll give you an example why that is important. Several years ago, I worked as a subcontractor on a fairly big project in Johannesburg. And one of the subcontractors was assigned the role of doing market analysis for the project we were working on. And so we used to have briefing sessions where all the subcontractors would report back on their progress. We were in charge of general research. And I do remember sitting there one evening and listening to this guy talking about how they were going to do the market research. And then he made a statement that caught my attention. He said they were going to use a demographic model, which is basically projections of population growth, to forecast demand for office space. Now, one of the things you would, if you join the course, one of the things you will quickly discover is that the demand for the different asset classes have distinct drivers. And so when it comes to demand for office space, population growth or growth in the number of households is not a direct driver. In other words, when the population of an area grows, the immediate effect is on housing and shopping centers and not in offices. So what is wrong with that statement that they were going to use a demographic model to forecast demand for office space? Well, it was a betrayal of the fact that they didn't understand what drives demand for office space. Straight up, I can tell you, demand for office space. Offices house white-collar occupations. And so if you want to forecast demand for office space, you need to look at employment growth in the so-called white-collar occupations, not in growth in the number of households. So that was a giveaway. So these guys that were given that significant assignment to do the market analysis for that project did not understand the answer to question 1. How do property markets function? What drives demand and supply for the different asset classes? So once you don't understand the correct answers to question 1, any tools and processes you use as part of question 2 will not give serious answers to your questions. And so, you know, if you ask me, why do you want to do this with SAIV at this time? Well, one of the things that I discovered just before COVID, during and after, was that we did a study of asset managers in the metro in and around Gauteng, and we discovered they needed market research reports to make asset management decisions. Many of them did not do in-house market research, they bought them. Majority of them admitted that they didn't have confidence in the reports, and yet they bought them because they were part of the compliance requirements for the asset management decisions they were taking. And so I discovered, you know, if you have an asset manager in charge of a portfolio, he has to add assets to the portfolio, take assets out of the portfolio, and he has to use market research as a basis for some of these decisions. The fact that they themselves admit that they don't have confidence in the quality of these reports is disturbing. It's very, very disturbing. And that makes it very, very important that we democratize this kind of knowledge, so that even if you don't produce your own market research reports, at least you become an astute buyer of the research reports, given that, you know, first of all, the decisions cost money, getting them wrong cost even more money, the reports themselves cost money. And so it's that important. If you're going to buy and base decisions that run into sometimes millions and billions of rands on it, it better be a good report. And so for me, it's slightly personal that, you know, when you hear these stories, when you do these studies and see these results, you realize we have a responsibility to empower the market, to make sure that market players have correct information to make good decisions. And so not answering these questions is costly. I've put on the slide a report that was circulating around the time I arrived in Johannesburg. Full disclosure, I arrived in Johannesburg on the 2nd of October 2011. It was a Sunday morning. And this was one of the first reports that I saw. It was published by Stanley back in the day. About 10 shopping centers in and around Gauteng that were failing. I can tell you that some of them were rescued, but I suspect some of them are still in trouble. Now, when you take this report and you unpack it, a good part of what was in that report were categorical failures of market analysis. There were, zoning failures. There were, a total failure to investigate if there was adequate excess spending power within the trade area of a prospective development before they built the shopping center. Some of them were design failures in the sense that the shopping center was built in such a way that the anchor tenant was physically separated from the rest of the tenants and next to the parking lot, which meant that people came in, bought their groceries and left without seeing the other tenants. And you wonder, did they understand what the role of the anchor tenant was supposed to be? He was supposed to bring business to the other tenants. And so when you separate the anchor tenant from the other tenant, the development is going to fail. Or in some cases, the tenant mix was simply wrong. Many of the shops that were in the development were high-end shops, and this mall was located in a low to medium income area. And so the number of people living in that area who could afford these luxury merchandise was simply too small. So the tenant mix did not match the spending pattern of the trade area around it. Another example was, you would have seen, those of you who've been in Johannesburg long enough, know that, for a very long time, the retail section of Melrose Arch struggled. Why did the shopping area of Melrose Arch struggle back in the day? Because it was a retail office mix. And mind you, Melrose Arch was between Sandton and Rosebank with their malls and smaller malls in between. So there was simply not enough spending power left. And the daytime office workers that would come to Melrose Arch were not enough to, take up what was being sold in the mall. One day I actually accidentally ran into the people who designed the mall. And then he told me, we were actually doing that development in phases. It was supposed to be, a mix of housing, retail, and offices, but we decided to go with housing and retail first. Now, there's the betrayal of a failure to understand market analysis, because if you are going to build a shopping mall, you need an adequate number of households with spending power to patronize the mall. So if I'm doing a shopping center, retail, if I'm doing a shopping center, office and housing mix, then I would rather phase in the housing and the retail first and let the office go second. So what you discover is that the concept of retail, office and housing was a good one, but the sequencing was wrong because it didn't understand what drives demand for which asset class. And then, of course, as I told you before, luxury shopping in the predominantly low to medium income area. These are all examples of the development mistakes we make when we don't understand how market analysis works. So the bottom line benefit of market research, therefore, is to generate the knowledge and information on how space markets work. And this is the information you need to assess whether a project is likely to meet your development objectives or your investment objectives before you commit resources. So that's you need to know in advance. Market analysis allows you to know in advance, is there a high chance that this project will help us make money? So as a result of that, I have to tell you, pretty much anybody who is a credible player in the property market would use market analysis. Pretty much everybody, for investment decision making, for valuations, for brokerage. If you have market analysis, you know where properties are going to be selling faster than where, and what asset types. If you're working even in auctions, then you know what transactions to get involved in. Developers, investors, asset managers, lenders, property managers, everybody needs a market analysis. Is the fundamental document on which several other reports that we write, like valuation reports, property management business plans, development feasibilities, they sit on market analysis. So what I've always told my friends and my students over the years is that if you have a feasibility report and you don't know what to make of it, go and look at the market analysis on which it is based. That's where the bodies are buried. If the market analysis is problematic, the feasibility report is likely to be problematic. And the same thing will apply to a property management business plan. It's only as good as the market analysis on which it is based. And so here are some examples of the users and how they use it. Now, if you look at the first column, I've put multiple things for valuers. And the point I'm making with this is that, the job of a valuer, because of the kinds of information a valuer generates for valuation assignments, in many markets, property valuers do more than just offer opinions on the value of assets. Property managers in many markets also do development feasibilities, they do due diligence work, they do investment reports. And so, one of the things we were discussing when we were planning this course is that perhaps one of the benefits of a course like this is to place property valuers in a situation where they can expand the range of services they offer to their clients beyond just valuations. Because if you're able to do market analysis, then you're able to do a lot more than just offer value opinions. So some words of caution. We need to put some words of caution here. If you're doing a market analysis yourself, you need to be careful to remain objective. So, the Johannesburg property market office market in particular, is in trouble. But a lot of people became aware of the trouble only during COVID, which is quite disturbing because the evidence that the Johannesburg office market was in trouble was already on display as far back as 2015, 2016. If you were able to do rigorous market analysis, the red lights were already flashing. So the question you ask yourself is, so how did people continue building? Because they will go and commission market analysis, And the analyst will tell them everything is good, you can go ahead and do it. They submit these reports to the banks also fund it. COVID was just the icing on the cake. And so I think that, it's one of the risks in the South African property market that people who do market analysis are not bound by any code of ethics. And so if they offer you a market research report and you make a decision based on it and it doesn't work, you can't really hold them to account. But it is still good for a professional to remain objective. The risk that is ongoing is that market research consultants looking for money, consulting fees, may tell you about the benefits and downplay the risks. So if you're buying these research reports, you need to have a little bit of healthy skepticism towards the projections they make. The other thing that I need to point out is that a good market research report is complex. And so the complexity means that it is best done by a team. A market analysis, a good one, involves so much work. You need about 2 or 3 people doing it together to do it well enough and do it quickly enough. And so one of the big problems, in my view, that faces the South African property market is the lack of skilled personnel. In the sense that when you read some of these reports, you realize, okay, these people don't quite understand how, property markets work. Now, on the client side, what I was telling you a few minutes ago was that a lot of clients are not sure what information a market study should be producing, but they would buy it anyway because they need to check the box that in the course of making those investment decisions, they bought a market research report. And then, of course, some of the reports focus on economic analysis at the expense of non-economic, social, and environmental factors. Some of these reports also are very optimistic. They report only the best case numbers instead of the range of possible outcomes, which means that many of the reports notoriously, do not contain any sensitivity analysis. So when things turn out worse than expected, the report doesn't give you an alert as to what the outcomes might be. And then, of course, some of the reports that I've looked at, you will see that the data that they used or even the methods that they use have certain limitations. It is important to warn the client about the limitations of the data you have used and how much the client can do with the conclusions you have drawn. So many of these reports, what I see is that they're not very honest about the limitations of the data they have and analysis they've been able to do with it. Some of them, especially on the retail side, don't do consumer surveys. They don't understand consumer spending patterns, and they give it advice on tenant mix. At least you need some secondary data on consumer surveys, because a successful shopping mall must have a tenant mix that matches the spending pattern of the people within the trade area. So that's important. So your question could be, all right, we heard you. In that case, what should a market analysis cover? Well, from a development point of view, a market analysis should give evidence of the factors that drive a project's ability to make money. Bottom line, full stop. Will this project make money if we buy it? Will this project make money if we develop it? Would we be able to sell it? Would we be able to rent it? How quickly can we sell it? How quickly can we rent it? And so what are those drivers? Where does the evidence lie? The evidence exists on many levels. The first level is at the level of the metro. There are metro level forces which, if they change in the right direction, will benefit most property types, including the one you want to buy. So that's the first thing you need to look at. Is the city growing in a way that favors the asset class we're considering developing or considering buying or considering investing in? Does the city growth support those asset types? Or would the type of growth in the city be favorable for those asset types? Then you go down to a narrower level, to the market area of the asset, and see what is driving demand for and supply for that specific asset class within the market area. Specifically, you need to look at what is the magnitude of excess demand for this asset within the market area. So that's the second source of evidence. And then you need to go to a particular site, a particular neighborhood, and see, what are the location and project-specific factors that could cause a particular investment to perform better than the competition. And if it does, what prices or rents are achievable, how quickly can we sell, or how quickly can we rent it out? So you need all this evidence together to decide if this project has the ability to help you make money. As a result of that, an integrated market analysis report must have three components. The first component is analyzing growth in the metro. The second component, which we call the macro analysis of the asset class, is basically measuring the level of excess demand within the market area of the asset. And the third level is the site and neighborhood analysis of a specific project, a specific investment, or a specific asset. And that corresponds to the drivers of a project's income generating capacity that I mentioned in the previous slide. So what is metro growth? What is metro growth analysis about? The first thing I need to point out is this. Look, real estate is durable. So if you build a house is not like a pair of shoes. So if we wear it for 2 years, we need to replace it with a new one. No, a house lasts for a very long time. So if we do a housing project, unless there is a growth in the number of households living in the area, we don't need new housing. A similar thing would apply to offices. If we build an office block, we don't need additional offices unless there is a growth in companies and employment in occupations that use office space. You could make the same argument, excuse me, you can make the same argument about shopping centers. If we build a shopping center, we don't need an additional shopping center unless there is growth in the number of households living in the area and excess spending power over and above what they're currently spending in the existing centers. If we build a warehouse or a data center, warehouse or manufacturing space, well, the only reason we will need additional industrial space is because we need space for additional manufacturing or additional storage. As a result, the starting point for the evidence gathering process about future demand for any asset class is to look at the evidence for growth in either population, incomes, employment, and output at the city level. And to unpack it to see what is causing the different types of growth and what this growth implies for, which asset classes would this growth benefit? And so that is, the first step of the market analysis process. As a result, when you do a good city level analysis, the first conclusion you need to do is to summarize the growth. What is usually every city would have a certain type of growth that is dominating. However, every city has elements of physical growth, every city has elements of wealth growth, and every city has elements of output growth. The only thing is that one of these, will dominate the others, or two might dominate the third. And the thing is that depending on which of these dominate, different asset classes benefit. And so when you do let me show you here. When you do this kind of analysis, in conclusion, you need to identify the potential beneficiary asset classes as the conclusion. So one of the things a market analysis report should be doing is analyzing the economy of South Africa. Why? Because assets compete with each other at the city level, not at the national level. So somebody who is trying to, a company deciding to locate in an office space will not be indifferent between Johannesburg and Kimberley. Johannesburg and Kimberley are not competing for the same types of office tenants. So the competition is within the metro. So the unit of analysis, the correct spatial unit of analysis, is the city, not the country. So one of the giveaways of a bad market analysis report is when they go on and on and on and on about the South African economy. No, they need to be telling you about the metro, the region, because that's where the asset classes compete among themselves, not a country level. The other reason why country level analysis is misleading is because depending on the economic specialization of the region, national economic events play out differently. So, for example, let's say the rand loses value to the euro. Well, it's probably bad news. Well, if a metro specializes in exports, that's not bad news. That metro will actually be growing. Why? Because exports, which are the main products of that metro, will be more competitive abroad. So you'll notice that real estate markets in that metro may be doing well, better than other metros, simply because the loss of value of the rand makes South African goods cheaper abroad. So that has favorable impacts on the local real estate market. So one economic event at the national level, different impacts at the city level. That is why you need to be looking at what is happening at the city level, not what is happening at the national level. So if you have any reference to national economic events, those reports need to tell you what the regional impacts are. Otherwise, it's useless information. So the second component will be the macroeconomic analysis of different asset classes. So once you have identified the potential asset classes that could benefit from this kind of growth, the next thing you need to look at, okay, so if we know there is going to be future demand for housing and retail, what is the level of excess demand for housing or retail within the market area or within the trade area? So the outcome, the major conclusion of this stage of the analysis is to look at the size of the housing deficit within the market area you're looking at, or the excess demand for office space, usually at the metro level, or evaluation of whether you should enter the market and how much unrealized sales potential there is for a potential new shopping center development, or the excess demand for industrial space. So the middle component measures the level of excess demand for whichever asset class you want to look at more closely as a result of the first step of the analysis. And then only asset classes with positive and significant excess demand survive to the next stage of the analysis. So if at this stage you have an asset class that has excess supply, then you don't produce new ones. So in a city like Johannesburg in 2016, the office had excess supply. The evidence was there. It was robust. We didn't need more. Unless you were building specifically for the tenant, speculative investments were going to do badly. COVID just made it so glaring now, nobody disputes it anymore. So at the last level of the analysis, which is you're now at the site and the immediate neighborhood of the particular investment, you now realize that, look, if your project or your investment is to be successful, the attributes of the project, if it's an office, the height and other characteristics of office must match tenant preferences. So at the micro level, the ability for the project to match the location and building attribute preferences of the tenants is key to having a successful project. What do I mean by that? Let's say you're building a housing project for families with children, and you decide, I'm going to buy one of those old office buildings in Braamfontein, and I'm going to convert them to apartments, and I'm targeting families with children. You might struggle because Braamfontein is not exactly the most family-friendly neighborhood. So even though there is robust evidence of a demand deficit in the Johannesburg housing market, the project might fail because the location is not ideal. And so it is important to have the housing type, number of bedrooms, bathrooms, playground, whatever. The building features, you have to get it right. You have to get the location right in order to have maximum chance of success. And the information about the suitability of a location and the kind of building attributes that would sell or rent is unpacked at this third level of the analysis. And so I'll tell you a very funny, well, not funny, interesting story. I had a group of students coming to WITS who were professional architects, took the degree and went back into architecture. And I would call them in whenever I saw them and ask them, well, why did you bother to do a real estate degree if you were going back to architecture? And they were like, oh, let me tell you something. And so in the past, we would do architectural design at the request of a client. The client would disappear, the client would show up a few days later, a few weeks later and say, well, you know, we've done the feasibility, this design doesn't work, you need to change this, you need to change this, you need to change this. And then we go back to the drawing board and we have to redo the whole thing. Now we've discovered that if the client were to do market analysis, especially the information on the micro analysis, then we know the building features that are likely to sell or rent. So we will be able to design building attributes, the number of bedrooms, the number of bathrooms, whether I need playgrounds, whether I need a gym, whether I need whatever, that is most likely to sell. And so we're thinking of reversing our business processes by asking our clients to come with a market analysis so that we don't have to spend so much time designing and redesigning. Why is that? Because this level of analysis provides information that is very, very crucial for architectural design. So the reason for microanalysis is that if you do it right, you generate information that allows developers and investors to maximize the value of their developments by carefully identifying the type of building most likely to sell, the type of building that is most likely to rent, and the type of location that matches those building types. And so what are some of the information, what's some of the information that this type of analysis, this stage of the analysis provides? Well, first of all, you have an index of how your project compares with the competition in terms of rents and other attributes. And from that, you can compute possible prices of rents, and you can create a projected speed schedule. How quickly can you sell? How quickly can you rent? And this is the primary input for the revenue side of a feasibility study, which is why I said a few minutes earlier that if you want to know whether a feasibility report is good or bad, this is where the bodies are buried. That's where you need to look, because this is the information that goes into the feasibility studies. And so now I'm in a position to give you a definition. Because if you notice, I didn't start this discussion by giving you a definition, because typically starting this discussion with a definition, it just goes past people. But now, what is real estate market? First of all, it's a process. It's work. It takes some time to arrive, to get it done. It's a process, and what are we doing with that process? We're trying to look for evidence of a project that we're planning, the project's ability to make money at two distinct levels, at the macroeconomic level and at the microeconomic level. Will this project, is there enough evidence to show that if we build this, we will make money? And as I said in the beginning, market analysis answers two questions. Market analysis gives you evidence of how real estate markets function at the macro city level and at the more narrow micro level. And the tools that are used to uncover this evidence reflect a knowledge of how property markets work. And these two questions are interconnected in the sense that, if you don't answer the first question well, then your tools will be suspect. And any integrated market report has these three components. All right. So I think that I'm now at a point where I can answer some questions, and then we'll go on and talk about the online course that we want to run next year. So I will stop the presentation, and then if you have any questions, now would be a good time to ask them. So I'll stop sharing and wait for questions.
Sam, can I kick off with a question, please? How would semigration impact a region? Would it affect all asset classes, both residential, office, industrial? Because we're seeing a huge movement from Gauteng to the Western Cape. Yes. Your comments, please.
It will affect all asset classes, but at different speeds. When there is this major migration, I think the immediate effects is felt in the housing market and in the retail market first. And what I've told, I have this WhatsApp group with my students, and we're always having, huge debates over these issues. But what I've argued is, if this semigration continues and the Western Cape establishes a reputation as a location where the smartest, most hardworking, most skilled people can be found, the companies might also move. Which means that demand for office space would eventually be affected because the companies are moving. Because companies can choose to have their headquarters at the moment in Johannesburg, in Pretoria, or Western Cape. I think those are the three top, and then, eThekwini, So these are the top 4 possible locations for corporate headquarters. And so if enough people are moving to the Western Cape, companies may get to a situation where they may well decide, we're gonna move to where the skills are. So eventually you might begin to see effects in the office market. How do I democratize access to market information?
Yes.
Well, we democratize access to market information by teaching maximum number of people how to produce these reports themselves. Some of the source data that you need are behind paywalls. However, they don't sell for prohibitive fees. So democratizing it will happen at two levels. First of all, by empowering the buyers so the buyers know what information they need to get out of those reports. And second, the second stage of democratization is to train people to do these things themselves. So, okay,
Sam,
yeah,
sorry,
sure.
before you go to the next question, Malusi had his hand up.
Okay, Malusi.
Malusi.
Hello. I think you're on mute.
Malusi, unmute.
Sorry,
Yeah,
my mic should not be geared.
I will send you my slides. Definitely, I'll send you my slides.
Can you, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, great. Sorry, my mic could not unmute, and I think the ladies there in the background are controlling the mic and camera quite tightly. So I think it's just a general comment more than just a question, Prof. I'm actually speaking just from a perspective of being a valuer in the bank and having worked in various roles in the valuation space, specifically in the financial services industry, where my experience is actually more inclined to. And obviously, you know, a lot in terms of developments. Banks are front and center when it comes to funding new developments. Banks are front and center in as far as commentary around market trends, you know, the risk, property risk in the market, and obviously in situations of distress, like we've seen with COVID, like we saw with the global financial crisis. But it's obviously a little bit higher level, and just bringing it back to, I think, the core basic transactional service that the bank actually offers in an instance where, you know, a loan or funding is actually requested against the property, whether it's residential or whether it's commercial. The information and the insight, and I know that you can actually get a lot more deeper in terms of the presentation that you've actually given us, and this is basically a teaser. But the information and insight that you actually share with us here, Prof, is profound and actually quite important, I think, to the consumers of you know, advice. Whether it's a valuation or whether you're dealing with an estate agent, whether you're dealing with a property manager, whether you're dealing with just about any service in property. And quite often I do come across demographic studies, I do come across valuations, I do come across just maybe an assessment or commentary, you know, coming from a professional or practitioner in the market. And I can tell you where these elements are lacking. You know, you don't go past the first paragraph. It does not become worth your time, and especially when you're playing in an environment where, you know, every decision that you make has got a direct impact on you know, funds, to the extent that making a wrong call could actually cost you real money. So it becomes quite an important I think, you know, analysis. And in actually, when someone actually goes in depth and goes through the various elements that you've actually shared here and puts them in their professional report, for instance, it is appealing to the eye, it is informative, and in my view, creates the necessary value where the service can actually be credible and be paid for and be good for the buck. Thank you so much, Prof.
Yeah, important commentary. And so one of my friends came back to the university to do his master's. He had a PhD, he wanted a graduate master's. And I told him, look, since you've been gone, we got all these new courses, maybe you want to take some of them. Market analysis was one of those he took. And when he finished, he sent for me. We met in town. And he said, look, I need you to urgently come to the bank and train my team, because I'm getting concerned that perhaps as a bank we're approving funding for projects we shouldn't approve. And I said, sure, why not? The university wants to expand its footprint, so you want to train people at the bank on how these things work. Of course I'm running. And so I went. Over several months we did this training. And one day we were in class and the guys was like, well, guess what? Today we turned down a funding application. And I said, why? He said, it was clear it wasn't going to work. And I asked, so how were you making decisions back then? He said, well, we were quite focused on market share. And so most of the time we would approve funding because we were of the view that if we didn't approve, they would go to the competition. And so I asked them, but what if it's a bad project? Why wouldn't you rather let the competition carry the can? And it didn't seem to have occurred to them that if the market analysis shows this is a bad project, as a bank, you have no business funding those projects because then you're going to have a non-performing loan on your hands. And so the comments you're passing is important, that, you know, very often banks are getting their fingers burned because submitting a market analysis report has become a tick box compliance step in the process. But as we've now seen with all these empty offices in the metro, some of those loans are going to come due. Cities like New York and Chicago, Texas, Austin, Dallas, they all have trouble on the horizon because a lot of projects were built. In fact, let me give you a curious example. Cities like Austin and Texas, Dallas have had most of the people gone back to the workplace, but they have one of the worst performing office markets because they simply overbuilt. At a time when there were tax incentives, they were simply overbuilding, and the banks were happy to lend. And so, where is the skills gap? The skills gap is that, I'll tell you something funny. We introduced market analysis, of course, at WITS in 2013. We're happy to be the first to introduce it. And I fully expected that sooner or later, all the other programs will catch on and copy. I'm quite surprised to notice that many of the programs in the country still don't have very robust training in market analysis. But as I showed you now, it is the foundational document for everything else that you do, which means if you don't understand market analysis, you really don't understand a lot. And so it's a risk. It's one of the causes of some of the troubles we see. Now, we couldn't shout too much back in the day because, first of all, mind you, we were new, you know, little black guy from some small African country coming to tell experienced players what to do. You don't really want to do that, you know, you might get into trouble. So we had all the evidence and we were like, maybe we're right, maybe we're not. On hindsight, we were absolutely right. All the evidence was there. And so I think that, you know, as I said in the beginning, part of the reason why I decided to take this up with SAIV was because I thought it is important to spread this kind of knowledge. It is important, even if you don't become people who do your own market research reports, you need to become more demanding and more discerning consumers of these reports. which means that if you buy the report one time, you go through, it doesn't give you the information you need, don't buy again, or buy from somebody else. So part of, when I say I want to democratize, part of the democratizing process is to make sure that people know what they're supposed to be paying for and can differentiate between good and bad market research reports.
Absolutely. Prof, and on that note, the next question from LaShawn Ferreira, she says, we rely on the suburb demographics provided by Lightstone suburb reports
Right.
for the average household income range, predominantly LSM, number of adults, period of ownership, as well as age of ownership.
Right.
I do not know if you've seen or dealt with any of these Lightstone reports.
Yes.
But I'm interested to hear your opinion regarding how to evaluate the quality of the data. How are we able to assess the quality of the information if the sources at our disposal are limited?
Now, so the Lightstone data is good. All of that information is good. But you have to then put it inside a formal market analysis. So some of that information belongs to the macro analysis. Some of that information is micro analysis. So the thing is that these types of data in and of themselves don't give you the picture you need to make decisions. You have to analyze it in a particular way to generate the information you need. And so what Lightstone is providing is raw materials. But if you don't understand the full market analysis project, the raw material in your hand, it's like somebody says, I'm hungry. And then you go home, you say you're hungry, and then your wife shows up with a bottle of oil, some tomatoes, some rice, some raw chicken in a pack, and says, here's your dinner. It doesn't solve the hunger problem. It has to be cooked.
True.
So what is happening is that Lightstone, I believe Lightstone has credible data. But the data they have is raw materials. You have to cook it, which means you need to understand how to do city level analysis, filter that information into market area analysis, filter that information to site and neighborhood analysis, and plug in. So some of the data you get from Statistics SA, some of it you get from Lightstone, some of it you get from Quantech, but you need to put all of this together to have a meal. So the problem is not whether Lightstone data is reliable or not. What you need to understand is that what Lightstone have is raw materials.
Yeah. And it's how you use it. Yeah.
So the reason things are the way they are is because you need skills, where to use that Lightstone data, what kind of information to use it to generate. And if you don't know that household information, income range, and all of that, what do you do with it? You wouldn't know.
Yeah. The next question is from Ephraim Mshlope, who's one of your WITS property undergrad students.
Right.
And he's basically asking where is the missing link in the valuation profession, because he wants to identify his competitive edge early. Maybe you can sum up?
Yes. Well, look. So one of the things that I picked up was that, the transformation imperatives in the South African industry means that there's quite a lot of focus on everybody wants to be a developer. Everybody wants to work in finance, and valuation is often overlooked. But if you were doing the BSc at WITS, which is a program I designed, you have incredible skills to do valuation. And the thing about valuation is that the barriers to entry are lowest for the entire industry. Once you get all the relevant professional certifications, I remember this lady, what was her name? Google. Google used to run her valuation business from the trunk of her car. She just drives around. She's got all the files in the trunk of her car. Google's office was in the trunk. And so what I would say is this, and if you're interested, I'll pair you up with one of my graduates who's running a very successful valuation firm to get mentored, do some internship for starters, and then get all the certifications lined up. I would say that from a transformational point of view, young people like yourselves need to go look at the possibility of valuation simply because the barriers to entry are very low. And secondly, as I was pointing out earlier, a lot of the inputs that valuers generate when they have to do a valuation assignment have alternative uses. For example, due diligence. Well, you find people in investment companies doing due diligence, but valuers are sitting on a lot of the inputs for due diligence. But the only thing is that the old programs were designed, which is something I was back, I discussed very, very rigorously with the previous registrar, which was, we cannot have a degree program focused on just valuation. We need to create a degree program that allows people to cross carpets in the entire industry. So you should be a valuer while being an investment analyst, capable of doing market analysis and writing a property management business plan. But I can assure you, valuation is a great starting point because the barriers to entry are lower. If you want to be a developer, you're not likely to get money. Why? Because you don't have a track record. So you start with valuation, and SAIV has these outstanding programs mentoring young valuers. And so it's always a good, in my view, the most practical way to make your way into the rest of the industry. So the thing is that everybody tells you need to be a developer. Chief, it's going to take time to be a developer, but you can be a valuer quickly. And if you go to VIT, I understand, I know the courses because I created those courses. You have solid training to get all your certification. All you need is the relevant professional experience, get certified, get started, and work with people, establish a reputation, establish connections, and you're going to be okay.
Thank you so much, Prof. I think we need to move on to the next phase.
Good.
Maybe.
So I'll turn it on. And let me share screen again. Here we go. And now let me. So what we're trying to do with SIV is to run an online course starting next year on market analysis, and we're going to build it in blocks. So we will be discussing the nature of real estate market research, very similar to the discussion we just had. It's just that we'll go into a bit more detail with more examples, why we do market research, the components, the questions that should be addressed, and the overall process of identifying opportunities in the housing market, in a particular market area, in specific locations. The structure is that we have a package of 4 online modules lasting over 5 weeks. What we want to do is that the first 2 days, we want to just use it to help people be able to successfully log in, navigate the site, and get comfortable with the platform. Then module 1, which is basically what we discussed today, should take about 1 day, equivalent to 1 day of self-study. Module 2 will cover the economics of real estate markets, which is a bridge, so it should take about a week, equivalent of about a week of self-study. And then module 3 will be analyzing city level growth, again, another 1 week of self-study with examples. And then module 4, which is the core of the thing, is how to analyze housing markets at the market area and within media sites. That should take about 2 weeks of self-study. And then we'll spend the last 3 days answering any unanswered questions that people might have. Now, what we will do is that for the duration of the course, we'll schedule an online meeting every Friday from 3 to 5 p.m. to answer questions. Unless we, decide that perhaps 3 to 5 p.m. is not a good good time, maybe noon time, maybe 1 to 2, because perhaps 3 to 5 p.m. people are doing the school drop or trying to get home in traffic. So perhaps 1 to 2 in the afternoon, we could go online and answer questions. And it would be good to have people submit questions in advance so we can prepare. But in between, any urgent questions should be answerable by the online tutors within 48 hours. And the final exam for the course is that we will give you some data that we've analyzed, and then you just need to use it to write a report a week after the course ends, so that you don't spend too much time on this. Because the longer it drags, the more likely it is that people will drop out because you're busy people. So what I'll do now is that I'll pause and I'll give you a glimpse of how the platform actually looks like. So let me see if I can find a platform. Let's see here. All right. Let me go here and open it. And so this would be, typically this would be module 1. And we've tried to make the graphical interface very basic, very simple, so that you would even be able to access it on your phone simply by making it landscape, horizontally. And so you have a map of the outcomes and the completion criteria, the learning activities. We break it down into topics. And then we have, at the end of every topic, there are optional progress checks and topic Q&As that you can go into. And then there is usually an assignment to go with the module and an opportunity to explore further by reading additional articles and also the textbook on which this course is based. I would recommend, when we're done, I would recommend that you buy this textbook and keep it with you, because it's not just a textbook, it's a great professional manual. In my view, it is the best book on market analysis that there is. I can assure you, I'm not getting a commission for making you buy this book. I'm just grateful to the publisher, and the story behind the book is that we got it from the widower, because the lady who actually wrote the book died before the book could be published, and the widower gave it to us to use at WITS, provided we didn't give out an electronic version until in 2018 when I approached some publishers in England and got them to publish it. So this is just my way of paying them back. But I can assure you, if you want to know about market analysis, you grab that book, you go through this course, you will have a good idea. And so the navigation is very simple. You just simply follow the arrow and you go through the course like this and you read. And in between, I have short videos that allow you to. And so, as I said before, the most useful way to go through a course like this is to use a case that we will use the course to unpack as we go through the material. So, as you can see, I recorded this video sitting right here. And if you need any assistance, you have the option to contact us, and there's a form that you can fill and submit. If you're on the other hand, you change your mind, you can just close the form, and then you're back where you are, and you go through the material. And where the material is longer, you have to scroll down to read everything. And so navigation, we have made to be as simple as possible, and we've broken it with short explanatory videos so that, you know, it doesn't get monotonous. Or if there is a point we want to emphasize, then I do a short video recording to explain some of the finer points. And so, and then at the end of the topic, I have a summary of the topic, and then we go on to the next topic. But before the next topic, you go a progress check to just satisfy yourself that you understand, you know, what this is about. So you're not just, you know, oh, definitely, Debbie would definitely send it to you if you get the information. And then if you have any additional questions on this particular topic, you can always send it to us. And then you go to the next topic, and then you go through all of that until you're done with the topic. So basically, this is how it would work. And so all the course information will be available with SAIV, including fees and all of that, and starting dates. And so it would be, yeah, all of that will be, yes, the cost, how many CET points will be provided by SAIV very, very shortly. And so this is basically how the platform would work. And on Fridays at the appointed time, myself or one of my former colleagues will go online with you. Oh, definitely. Yes, definitely. And we'll go online with you and answer any questions you might have. And we will try to give you supplementary material, including example reports. We'll give you example reports so you know what a good report should look like, because that's super important. You need to know what you should be paying for. So we'll give you some good example reports. Okay. Of course, we'll block out the name of the client so you don't know who commissioned it, but we'll give you some good reports. All right, so that is about it. And okay, so all the mentees, you're on the hook now. Oh, the book, okay. Oh, the book. I'll write the book now. Let me share the page with you. It's available on Amazon. I'll send the link. I'm going to share the link in the chat now. I highly recommend this book. I cannot recommend it enough. I mean, if there's a reason to hire a graduate from WITS, this book is one of the reasons. I've just shared the book in the chat. Because we take them through this twice. They do some of the chapters in the second year, and then they do the rest in the fourth year. And we make them do, yes, you will. Connie, yes. The answer is yes. SAIV will issue a certificate, definitely. So if there's a reason to hire a student from WITS, I would argue this is it. And, you know, I no longer work for WITS, no longer an employee, but I can assure you they have it going on, because I'm of the view that a good degree in property must start with solid training in market analysis. Because without it, you're flying blind, man. You're flying blind. So, yeah. Any other questions before we call it a night? Or how can you contact me? All right.
Prof, perhaps via the SAIV?
Yes, yes. So contact Lerato.
Yeah.
Yeah, contact Lerato. Lerato will be the clearinghouse for all inquiries. So just contact Lerato. Lerato would harvest all the inquiries, send it to me, and I'll address them. I promise, 48 hours maximum. Excellent.
Thank you so much. If there are no more questions, there's one. Is the BSc Honours in Property Studies available in part-time?
Unfortunately not. Unfortunately not. So what we've been able to do is that the way I built the 4-year program, we were able to break it into 3+1. So now the +1, which is an honors, is available. So if you have an advanced diploma, you can go and do the honors.
Is the honours?
Yeah, the honors is available.
But face-to-face, full-time?
Face-to-face, but there is a PG diploma, which is equivalent to the honors, that is available in the evenings from 5:30 to 8.
Ah, and
Yes.
that's through WITS?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome.
Oh, Nokutara. Hi, how are you? So I have a lot of alumni here.
Question from David Hoffman.
Well, look, the information that you would do process in the market analysis is not personally identifiable. Yeah, because you're doing aggregate analysis of households. You're not identifying individuals.
And then the question about the QS studies, property studies, does it still have the QS measuring module?
The property studies we have at WITS has some building science and construction technology modules, but I can't remember if they're doing measurement. I do. Oh, yes. Now, let me answer that question more honestly. I do remember after COVID, during COVID, because the students didn't have live classes, when they arrive at the offices of their mentors, they didn't understand the basics of measuring floors because we couldn't do it during the pandemic, and that was a problem. But I suspect now that we're back in live mode, I think part of the evaluation model includes training the students how to take measurements of floor areas, yes.
And then there's a question or a request to tell us more about the WITS postgraduate diploma.
The WITS postgraduate diploma is 2 academic years in the evenings, 24 months. It typically happens on a Monday to Thursday from 5:30 to 8. And, you have about 2 to 3 evenings a week at WITS. And if you pass all the courses, you 24 months, you're gone. It is much more comprehensive than the master's program in the sense that it covers more business areas than the master, because the master's has this research requirement, so we couldn't put in more courses. But we did put more courses. So, for example, the postgraduate diploma has development, valuation, asset management, property management, even leadership training, which I used to do, and investments and market analysis and finance, and brokerage. In fact, WITS is the only university that is training people in brokerage at the university level. So our postgraduate diploma comes highly recommended because it trains you for the whole thing.
Excellent, thank you.
So if you go to WITS, tell them I sent you.
We will.
So,
Prof, we almost run out of time, and there don't seem to be any more questions. Thank you so, so much for your time. And I, for one, am going to be doing this course. So we'll see you on the other side. Thank you. And
thank you, everybody, for
good
giving
night.
us your evening, and great. See you online. Bye-bye.